Darren moved slowly through the broken remains of the village. The battle had ended only a few hours ago, and smoke still rose from the ground like thin gray fingers. The wind carried the smell of dust and burned metal. Most soldiers had already returned to their bases, but Darren stayed behind. He was a mechanic, not a fighter, and he wanted to check if any machines or tools could still be saved. He did not expect to find anything alive. He stepped over fallen beams and crushed metal plates. Everything was silent. Too silent. Darren felt something strange in the air, something that made his chest tighten. It was not fear, it was an odd feeling that someone or something was nearby. Then he heard it. A tiny sound. A weak cry, almost like a whisper. It came from under a pile of bent metal sheets. Darren froze and listened again. The cry returned, thin and trembling. He hurried toward the sound and pushed the metal aside, one piece at a time. When he moved the last plate, he saw it, a small alien hatchling curled on the ground. Its skin was pale, almost gray, and its breathing was sharp and fast. The creature looked too young to defend itself and too weak to stand. Darren knelt beside it. The hatchling's big eyes opened a little, full of fear and pain. Its chest rose unevenly. Darren could see it was sick, maybe injured, maybe just starving. Whatever the reason, it would not survive long. Not alone. He looked around the empty village. No adults. No survivors. No movement. "You're all alone, aren't you?" he whispered. The hatchling let out a soft, broken sound. Darren felt something twist in his heart. He knew what humans usually did with alien young found after battles. They handed them to soldiers or scientists. Sometimes the young simply disappeared and no one asked questions. But Darren did not want that to happen. He slowly reached out his hands. "It's okay. I won't hurt you." The hatchling hesitated, then relaxed just a little. Darren gently lifted it into his arms. His body felt too light and it shivered as if cold. He wrapped it in his jacket and held it close. "We're getting you help," he said softly. "I promise." He stood up and began walking back toward the human outpost. The path was long and the sun was already dipping behind the hills. Shadows began to stretch across the ground. Darren felt uneasy again, the same strange feeling as before, like eyes were watching him from far away. Every time he turned around, he saw nothing but broken walls and empty roads. He kept going, trying to walk faster without shaking the small creature. The hatchling rested its head against his chest, breathing weakly. Its breath felt warm through the fabric of his shirt. Darren tried to whisper comforting words, even though he did not know if the creature understood him. Still, it seemed to calm a little. About halfway to the outpost, he heard a soft rumble behind him. He stopped and turned. The road was empty. The trees at the edge of the village moved slightly in the wind, but nothing else. He waited. Silence. "Probably my imagination," he muttered, though he did not believe his own words. He continued walking. The sun sank lower and the sky turned gold and orange. The shadows grew long and thin, stretching like arms across the ground. Darren felt the air change again, heavy and alert. Something was out there, following him. He kept one hand on the hatchling and the other near his tool belt. He wasn't a fighter, but he carried a small shock tool for repairs. It would not stop a big creature, but it made him feel better. Another sound came, a light thump on the dirt road. Darren spun around. Again nothing. But this time he saw something else, a footprint. Large, deep, and fresh. Much bigger than his own. He swallowed hard. Someone had stepped there just moments ago. "Great," he whispered. "Just what I needed." But he could not turn back. The hatchling needed help, and the outpost was the only place with medical supplies. He held the hatchling a little closer and continued forward. The road felt longer with every step. The sky darkened and the first stars appeared. The chill in the air grew sharper. Darren knew he was not alone, but whatever followed him did not attack. It did not even come close. Just watched. At last, the lights of the outpost appeared ahead in the distance. A soft, warm glow. Darren let out a slow breath of relief. The hatchling shifted in his arms, eyes half open. "Almost there," he whispered. "Just hold on." Behind him, far back on the road, a tall shape stood at the edge of the trees. It watched him quietly, its eyes glowing faintly in the dark. The figure did not move forward. It simply watched Darren carry the hatchling into the safety of the human lights. Darren never saw the figure. But the figure never stopped watching him. Darren did not sleep that night. The hatchling lay in a small medical bed inside the outpost clinic, wrapped in warm blankets while the machines hummed softly. The medic, a quiet woman named Lyra, had done everything she could. She said the hatchling was weak, dehydrated, and frightened, but it would survive if it kept resting. Darren sat beside the small bed watching the creature breathe. It looked a little better now. Its skin had more color and its breathing was slower, calmer. Every time it shifted, Darren felt a warm relief spread through him. He did not understand why he cared so much. He had found injured animals before. He had fixed broken machines too many to count. But this was different. When he held the hatchling he felt something strong inside him, something that told him he had to protect it. Outside the clinic door the night was dark and still. Most soldiers were asleep. Only the guards walked along the fences, checking shadows and listening for danger. Humans always feared night on foreign planets. Too many things moved when the sun went down. Darren stepped out of the clinic for a moment to breathe fresh air. The sky above was full of stars, brighter than anything on Earth. The planet's 2 moons hung low like glowing lanterns. The wind carried the scent of metal, dust and something else, something faint but familiar. He felt that same strange tension in his chest again. That feeling from the battlefield. Like someone was watching him. He scanned the dark hills around the outpost. Everything seemed quiet. But the feeling did not disappear. A guard walked past him and nodded. "You all right, Darren? You look jumpy." "I'm fine," Darren said, though his voice sounded unsure. "Just, long day." The guard shrugged and kept walking. Darren stayed at the fence for a moment more, listening. The wind rustled the tall grass outside the walls. He thought he heard a soft, heavy breath far away. When he turned toward the sound, the darkness swallowed everything. He finally went back inside. The hatchling lifted its head when he returned. Its bright eyes followed him. It let out a small, warm sound as if recognizing him. Darren smiled a little and sat beside it again. "You're safe now," he said softly. "Don't worry." The hatchling closed its eyes and leaned toward his hand. Darren touched its head gently. Its skin felt warm, smoother than any creature he had ever cared for. The night passed slowly. In the early morning hours, just before the sun rose, the alarms suddenly beeped once. Just a short pulse, then silence. Darren jumped. Lyra rushed into the room with a confused look. "That was strange," she said. The motion sensors picked something up outside the gate, but nothing showed on the cameras. Darren felt his heart tighten. "Maybe it was an animal?" he suggested. Lyra shook her head. "Not big enough. The signal was large. But whatever it was, it didn't try to enter." Darren didn't answer. He remembered the huge footprint from last night. The heavy breathing. The shape he never saw. He looked down at the hatchling. It was awake now, staring at the door as if it sensed something outside. Its tiny claws dug into the blanket. Its breathing sped up, not in fear but something else, recognition. Darren whispered, "What do you know that we don't?" The hatchling looked up at him and let out a soft cry. For a moment, its eyes glowed faintly. Hours later, soldiers gathered near the front gate. The ground outside the outpost had been disturbed. Something large had walked through the dirt during the night. The tracks were deep, fresh and wide. "Not human," one soldier muttered. "Not one of ours," another said. The commander ordered everyone to stay alert. No one knew what creature had been so close without attacking. Darren heard all of it while standing beside the hatchling's bed. The creature rested again, but every few minutes, it lifted its head and looked toward the wall where the unknown tracks had been found. It behaved like someone was calling to it silently. That uneasy feeling stayed with Darren the whole day. When evening came, the outpost grew quiet once more. Darren carried the hatchling in his jacket and walked outside for fresh air. The wind felt cooler than before. The sky was dim, painted with orange and purple. He stepped toward the fence again. This time he knew he wasn't alone. A shadow moved at the edge of the hill, tall and steady. Not creeping. Not hiding. Watching. Darren could not see what it was, but he felt a strange calm instead of fear. The hatchling let out a tiny sound and pressed closer to him, as if comforted by both him and the presence outside. The shadow remained still, unmoving. Darren whispered, "Who are you?" The wind carried no answer. But the shadow did not leave. It simply watched him, watched the hatchling, like a silent guardian waiting for something. Something that Darren did not understand yet. But soon would. The next morning was colder than usual. A thin mist covered the outpost, soft and white, drifting between the buildings like quiet smoke. Soldiers moved slowly through it, rubbing their hands, checking their weapons, trying to shake off the uneasy feeling that had been growing since the strange tracks appeared. Darren barely slept. He kept the hatchling close to him all night, and even now the small creature rested against his chest, warm and calm. It trusted him completely, and that thought made Darren feel both proud and worried. He still did not understand why the shadow outside watched them, or why the hatchling reacted to it like it recognized something familiar. He stepped outside with the hatchling, hoping fresh air would clear his thoughts. But the mist felt strange today. Heavy. Too still. A soldier ran by, breathless. Darren. The commander needs everyone at the front gate. Now. Darren hurried there. The hatchling clung to him, sensing the tension already building around the outpost. When he arrived, a group of soldiers stood beside the commander. They pointed toward the open plains beyond the walls. The mist was thinning, revealing a dark shape standing at the edge of a field. It was tall. Almost 2.5 meters. Its silhouette was strong and sharp, like someone carved it from metal. It did not move. It simply stood there, watching them with silent, steady patience. Darren's breath caught. The shadow from yesterday. The soldiers raised their weapons as the figure began to walk toward the gate, slow, deliberate steps that shook the ground. Darren expected a monster or a warrior or some dangerous alien hunter. But when the mist finally cleared, the figure stepped fully into view. Everyone froze. It was a woman, an alien woman, but tall, majestic, and covered in shimmering armor the color of deep blue stone. Her skin was pale silver, marked with glowing lines that moved gently like flowing water. Her eyes were bright gold and fierce, and they stared straight at the hatchling in Darren's arms. The commander whispered, "That's a Sarathin royal." But they never come alone. No one dared fire. No one dared move. Darren felt the hatchling tremble. Not with fear, but with excitement. It reached its tiny arms toward her. The alien woman stepped closer. Her voice, when she spoke, was soft but powerful, like thunder wrapped in silk. "Human," she said, looking directly at Darren. "You have something that belongs to me." Darren's heart raced, but he stood firm. This hatchling was dying. I only wanted to help. The commander pushed forward. "Identify yourself." The alien woman turned her golden gaze toward him, and the commander instantly fell silent. Her presence alone felt heavier than any weapon. "I am Sarathin Queen Arale," she said, her voice calm but impossible to doubt. "Mother of the hatchling you hold." Every soldier around Darren stiffened. Several stepped back. A queen was not just royalty, she was the strongest warrior of her species, the leader of millions, feared by entire fleets. And she was here, alone, because of a tiny sick hatchling. Darren swallowed hard. "You followed me?" "For 2 days," she said. "You walked through danger. You protected my child as if it was your own. I watched because I did not know your intentions." She paused. Her gaze softened slightly. "Now I do." She took slow steps until she stood just a few feet away. Darren felt like he was standing in front of a storm, beautiful but terrifying. The hatchling reached toward her and let out a tiny cry. The queen's expression changed immediately. "Pain. Relief. Love." She knelt. The soldiers gasped. A queen kneeling was something no one expected to see in their lifetime. Arale bowed her head toward Darren and spoke quietly. "You saved the life of my last hatchling. I owe you more than words." Darren was speechless. He held the hatchling carefully as it leaned happily toward its mother. The commander tried to speak again, nervous and tense. "Your Majesty, if your forces are near, we need to know. This could be." "They will not attack," she said without even looking at him. "I did not come to bring war." She slowly reached for the hatchling. But Darren hesitated. "Wait," he said quietly. "It's still weak. It needs gentle care." The queen blinked, surprised that a human dared interrupt her. But instead of anger, a faint smile touched her lips. "You care," she whispered. "Strange human. You care more than many of my own people do." She lowered her hands, letting Darren stay close as she inspected her child. The hatchling nuzzled her armor and made a soft purring sound. Darren realized then that the fear he'd felt these last days wasn't danger. It was the presence of something powerful watching over him. The queen did not come to harm him. She came because she trusted him with the most important life in her empire. Arale rose slowly and looked at the humans around her. "This human," she said, gesturing to Darren, "showed honor when he believed no one was watching. For that, the Sarathin will not forget him." The soldiers exchanged stunned looks. Darren could only stand there, holding the hatchling as the truth settled in his heart. The shadow that followed him was not an enemy. It was a queen. And now the whole outpost, and soon the whole galaxy, knew it. The outpost fell into deep silence after the queen revealed herself. No one dared to even breathe too loudly. Some soldiers backed away, others froze in place, and a few simply stared at Darren as if he was holding a son in his arms. No human in history had ever stood so close to a Sarathin queen without guards, without weapons, without fear. But Darren did not step back. He stayed where he was, still holding the hatchling, still steady, even as everyone around him trembled. The queen watched him with calm golden eyes. "Human," she said softly, "I wish to take my child to the healer ship. It needs proper treatment." Darren nodded slowly. "I understand. But—" He looked down at the hatchling. It pressed close to him again, refusing to leave his arms. "Let me go with you. At least until I know it's safe." The commander grabbed Darren's arm quickly. "Are you insane? She could kill you the moment you leave this outpost." Darren gently pulled his arm free. "She could have already. Many times." The queen gave the smallest hint of a smile. "This human speaks truth." A low hum filled the air. Every soldier tightened their grip on their weapons as a massive shadow passed overhead. A seraphin ship, shaped like a long silver flower with wings of light, descended slowly behind the hills. Even through the thick air, its glow was soft and peaceful. The commander stepped forward, voice shaking. "Your Majesty, we need to send a message to High Command." "You may send whatever you wish," the queen replied, her voice gentle but absolute. "But this human will come with me." The soldiers stared at Darren. He was a simple engineer, not a soldier, not a hero. But the queen had made her choice clear. Darren took a slow breath and held the hatchling tighter. "I'll go." The commander whispered, "Darren, you don't have to do this." But Darren already knew he did. He followed the queen through the gate. Each step felt heavy, but he did not run. He did not hide. The hatchling made soft noises in his arms, trusting him more than ever. Outside the wall, the grass swayed gently in the wind. The queen walked ahead of him, her long armor catching the early sunlight. She moved with the grace of someone who could crush armies but chose not to. As they approached the hill, something unexpected happened. The queen slowed her steps. She looked back at Darren with a strange expression, almost as if she was studying him. "Many humans would fear me," she said quietly. "Many would run. But you walk beside me." Darren shrugged a little, though his heart was pounding. Running doesn't help anyone. And the hatchling, it needed someone. The queen stopped walking. "This is why I followed you," she said. "Not because you found my child, but because you did not use it for yourself. You did not bargain. You did not demand. You just helped." Darren didn't know what to say, so he stayed quiet. The healer ship landed nearby. Its doors slid open, releasing warm blue light. Four seraphin healers stepped out. Their armor was lighter than the queen's, almost transparent, and their hands glowed softly with medical tools. The hatchling lifted its head and let out a weak but happy chirp. One healer bowed to the queen. "Your Majesty, we came as soon as your signal reached us." She nodded. "Prepare the child." When the healers reached for the hatchling, Darren did something no one expected. He hesitated. He pulled the hatchling closer, almost protectively. It surprised even him. The queen noticed. She tilted her head. "Do you fear we will harm it?" Darren shook his head quickly. "No. I just want to see it wake up again." There was a long pause. Then the queen made a simple gesture to the healers. "Let him come." The healers stepped back and guided Darren inside the glowing ship. The interior was warm and bright, filled with soft humming energy. Strange plants hung from the walls, glowing gently, and machines pulsed with quiet rhythm. They placed the hatchling on a healing bed made of smooth light. Darren stood beside it the whole time. The healers worked fast, using energy waves and small tools that looked almost alive. The queen stood near him, silent but watchful. Minutes passed. Then the hatchling's breathing grew steady. Its eyes opened slowly. It looked around, confused at first, then relieved when it saw Darren. It tried to climb into his arms. The queen inhaled sharply. This was not normal. A royal hatchling never bonded with someone so quickly. Not even with family. Darren smiled and gently touched its head. "See? You're okay." The queen stepped closer, her voice quiet. "It has chosen you." Darren blinked. "What do you mean?" "In my culture," she said, "a hatchling only clings to those it fully trusts. You are now part of its bond. That cannot be undone." Darren felt his chest tighten, unsure what it meant for the future. The queen watched him with a new expression, one filled with respect and something deeper, something rare. "You did not run," she said. "You stood your ground. You protected what was small and weak. And now, my child chooses you." Darren looked at the hatchling again, and the hatchling looked back with bright, trusting eyes. He realized that his life had already changed. And so had the galaxies. The news traveled faster than light. A human had saved the seraphin queen's only hatchling. A human had been invited onto a royal healer ship. A human had earned the Queen's trust. When Darren returned to the outpost with the Queen beside him, the soldiers did not know how to react. Some bowed without thinking. Others simply stared at him like he had stepped out of a legend. The hatchling rested in Darren's arms again, healthy, warm, and bright-eyed. It chirped happily whenever he moved, refusing to let anyone else hold it for long. The Queen walked beside Darren with a calm and powerful presence. Every soldier stepped aside when she passed. No one dared speak first. No one dared interrupt the strange bond forming between human and royalty. Finally, the commander approached them with shaking legs. "Your Majesty, what happens now?" The Queen looked at Darren before she answered. "Now we speak of peace." The commander blinked. "Peace?" "You're human," she said, her voice steady, showed mercy when he had no reason to. He saw a life, not an enemy. For that, the Seraphim will honor him. And we will not continue this war. Every soldier froze. The war had lasted 5 long years. Both sides blamed each other, both sides suffered, and both sides believed peace was impossible. But now, the Queen herself stood on human soil and said the one thing no one expected. Darren felt a sudden wave of fear and hope mix in his chest. "Are you sure?" he asked softly. "There's still anger on both sides." The Queen nodded. "Yes. But anger does not guide me. My child does." She reached out and touched the hatchling's head gently. "This little one survived because a human cared. I will not forget that." She turned to the commander. "Send word to your leaders. I will meet them soon." The commander nodded quickly. "Yes, Your Majesty." Over the next hours, everything changed. The outpost that once felt heavy with fear now buzzed with quiet excitement. Humans whispered among themselves, pointing at Darren whenever he passed. Some thanked him. Some didn't know what to say at all. But everyone understood one thing. He had done something no soldier, no general, no diplomat ever could. He had saved a child. That simple act shook an entire galaxy. The Queen stayed near Darren, never far from him or the hatchling. She did not treat him like a servant or a stranger. She treated him like someone important, someone equal. When the healers checked the hatchling again, she insisted Darren stay in the room. "Your scent calms it," she explained when he asked why. Darren laughed softly. "I didn't know I had calming powers." "You do," she replied with a small smile. "At least to my child." Later that evening, the Queen walked with Darren to the edge of the outpost. The sky was dark purple, sprinkled with bright stars. The hatchling slept against Darren's chest, warm and safe. The Queen looked at him with a thoughtful expression. "There is something else you should know." Darren raised a brow. "What is it?" "In our culture," she said slowly, "a hatchling does not bond by accident. It does not cling to someone unless that person is part of its life path. By choosing you, my child has placed you in our future." Darren stared at her, unsure what that meant. "Are you saying I'm responsible for it now?" "In part," she said. "And it will remember you for the rest of its life." Darren looked down at the hatchling's peaceful face. It made a soft sound and curled closer to him. His heart softened instantly. "I'm not sure I deserve that," he admitted quietly. The Queen shook her head. "Deserving does not matter. You already changed something far greater than you realize." "What did I change?" "Everything," she answered. The next days moved quickly. Human leaders arrived. Seraphim leaders arrived. Meetings were held in large tents. Soldiers watched in awe as the Queen walked through their ranks like a calm storm. Every time the discussions grew tense, the hatchling would make a small noise from Darren's arms, and the Queen would soften again. Even the human generals relaxed when they saw that tiny creature purring happily. People began calling it the Peace Hatchling. Reporters sent messages across distant stations. The galaxy buzzed with questions. How could a simple human mechanic become the symbol of peace between two powerful species? But Darren never felt like a symbol. He only felt the small weight of the hatchling in his arms, warm and alive, and he thought about the day he found it on the battlefield. One life changed his whole world. And now everyone else's. On the final day of the peace talks, the Queen stood before human and Seraphim leaders. Darren stood beside her, the hatchling awake and curious, staring at the crowd. The Queen spoke clearly. "The war ends today. Not because of treaties. Not because of fear. It ends because a human showed kindness to my child when no one watched." She placed her hand on Darren's shoulder. "This human changed the war," she said. "And now he will help guide a new future." Darren swallowed hard, overwhelmed, but the hatchling nuzzled him gently as if telling him he wasn't alone. For the first time in years, humans and Seraphim lowered their weapons. For the first time in years, hope filled the air. And Darren stood in the center of it all, an ordinary man who carried a small, sick hatchling off a battlefield, and somehow carried peace with it.